here. I wanted to come on here today and talk about the red flags of an emotional manipulator. And so there is a slew of problematic people in the world. There's narcissists, there's sociopaths, there's, emotional abusers, emotional manipulators. There are so many different types of people, some of whom we don't even really have labels for. They just kind of exist in these weird spectrums where people are just kind of crappy people. But there's a ton of manipulative people. But I wanted to kind of hone in on a specific type of person, and that's the person who plays mind games. And, I've noticed that within society, we've kind of come up with like a cultural term for this, and it's typically, pardon my language, but I'm going to curse here, F boys and F girls, fuck boys and fuck girls. That's typically what we refer to people who play like these mind games with the intent of getting affection. And, it's very, very, very strange. It's something I've experienced, and a lot of people have experienced, having a partner or even a friend who plays all these games and acts as though they don't want to be around you, but then when you are around other people, they're jealous, or maybe in a partner situation, they don't want to have to claim you, but they want you to treat them like a boyfriend or a girlfriend. There's a slew of examples, but in reality, these people are very, very, very dangerous, and they are emotional abusers. And a lot of times we get so caught up in their tango and this back and forth that we don't realize that we really just need to run. And in order to do that, we have to identify the problem. The first step to fixing any problem is identifying it. And so I think the first thing we need to do is identify what are the red flags of these types of people. These people who play mind games, these people who have no consideration of our mental health, but all types of consideration for theirs. We have to make sure we don't get tackled and pulled into the bushes by these people. And so this is going to be a video about the red flags of emotional manipulators. So the first red flag, or rather the first thing that you should probably know, is that mean people can come off as nice. Manipulative people will come off as passive and nice. One thing that we don't really take the time to understand is that manipulative people typically wear a mask. When you meet them, you are not meeting them, you are meeting their representative. That is something my dad would always tell me. He'd be like, Ara, when you meet people, you are not meeting them, you are meeting their representative, so be careful. And that advice I had to learn it again the hard way. It was always one of those things that I heard and I knew, but I never really fully understood and practiced. And as I've gotten older and I've dealt with more and more harmful people, that's something I have fully come to understand, that people wear a mask. People oftentimes can hide their ugliness very easy, and it is not your job to put up with their ugliness. And also, when people show you who they are, believe them. Do not let people prove you wrong or right. Like, don't wait around and let people harm you. Or what I'm saying is essentially, if you have a bad feeling and you feel as though somebody's wearing a mask, walk away then. But it's really important that you understand that it's okay to have trust issues. I know, typically we stigmatize trust issues and we try and get people to kind of corrupt those boundaries, but in my opinion, trust issues are very normal. Especially when you've been abused or hurt a lot, and oftentimes they keep you very, very safe. Now, I think there are some levels of trust issues that can be very harmful, but I think having a healthy and even a large level of skepticism towards most people when you don't know them, and even as you know them and as you're getting closer to them, is very normal. It is very healthy, especially given this day and age. You never know who you're meeting. People can look a wide variety of ways. It's really funny because have any of you ever had a coworker who's very overtly mean? Meaning, they kind of are that person who has like smoke coming out of their ears. They storm around. Everybody kind of avoids them. They're that person who's a snake in the road. Everybody knows they're a shitty person, so everybody stays away from them. Okay, well, most manipulators typically aren't like that. They're typically the exact opposite. They're the snakes in the grass. I gave this analogy in another video, but typically they come off as very nice people, They are really good at making themselves seem nice. They are really, really good at being charming. And charm is, by definition, deceitful. The definition of charm is, being kind with the intention of getting something in return, or being kind with an agenda of getting something. It's not sincere. And oftentimes, a lot of these manipulators who we meet are typically very, very, very charming. They're the people who go out of their way to be very, very nice because they don't want to be outed as abusers. They don't, think about it. Manipulation really wouldn't even work if we knew that the person was mean. It's funny because in my life I have dealt with both covert manipulators and overt manipulators. And the people with the smoke flowing out of their ears and they're like the snakes in the road, even if they're manipulative, everybody sees it, and so nobody likes them. So if that person does something, even if they hurt you, typically other people are like, yo, that person's a hot mess, or that person's rude. Other people see it, and typically there is usually, this person has a very overt, appalling scent to them. Not like scent doesn't smell, but a spiritual scent. You can just kind of, their vibes give you chills. But when it comes to covert manipulators, oftentimes most people really like them and speak way too highly of them. Most covert emotional manipulators come off as, almost these little baby birds with broken wings, like Dana Morningstar says. These meek little victims who are just trying to be kind so that the world will be kind to them, but that's rarely ever who they are. They put on these masks of sensitivity, of niceness, and again, niceness does not equate to sincerity or genuineness, and that's really important that you know that too. But they put on these masks as though they're these kind, caring, empathetic, self-aware people, and they're not. And a lot of times in my experience, those are the people who get away with manipulation the most because, we expect a lion to roar, but we don't expect a bird to roar. We don't expect, there's a wide variety of things we do and we don't expect from others. And it's one of those things where we expect lions to sound like lions, but we expect birds to sound like birds. But you know what? Even though I've never met an actual bird that roars, there are baby birds with broken wings who roar in this analogy. So yeah, understand that not only do these people wear masks, but they oftentimes present themselves as these little baby birds with broken wings. They typically have a sort of representative that they present. And typically the first tip off of an emotional manipulator is typically you'll have a feeling. For me, with every person who I look back at who was in my life who was an emotional manipulator, I had a distinct feeling about what they were doing. It was one of those things where you can't put your finger on it, but you feel it. You don't know quite what it is, but you feel it. And at that point, when you feel it, you should run. But a lot of us stick around because we're like, oh, I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to be seen as a bad guy. Let me just give them a chance. And then you give them a chance and you're waiting for them to hurt you essentially. And then they do. And then it's like, oh crap. And then you're heartbroken, or maybe you're in danger. It's a whole thing. So it's better to just listen to yourself. And I did a whole video on listening to your intuition and kind of getting in tune with that. I don't have too many videos out. I recently started, so if you just go to my page, you can find it very easily. There's a couple of videos. But anyways, moving on. So the second red flag of an emotional manipulator is fake accountability. So in order for manipulation to typically take place, there has to be a level of stage setting. And a lot of that includes love bombing. And I'm going to get love bombing's actually the third one. So I'll get into that a little later. Like I spoke about before, this passive and nice personality, they act as though they would never want to hurt anyone, and that they just want to be loved and receive love, and they would never want to hurt anybody. And if they ever hurt anybody, that would traumatize them so deeply. And these are kind of the ingredients for setting the stage for manipulation. It's to kind of sweep you up into this romantic energy, or this lovely energy, and then start devaluing you, and then at that point you feel trapped. And so like I said, fake accountability. So a lot of times, like I said, they want to present as though hurting you could be the worst thing they could ever do for you and for themselves. And so they make it seem as though their whole mental health and ability to stay sane, to stay sound, and to be okay relies on their ability to not hurt you. This is going to be the game they play, where they pretend like hurting you would traumatize them. They will act like if they ever hurt you, it's going to hurt them so bad. And so what you'll notice is that they'll always over apologize for everything. And it's not a sincere apology. They're apologizing a lot so that when they actually start doing messed up and abusive stuff, you feel guilty for holding them accountable. And so they'll apologize for everything. And as they'll apologize, oftentimes they might cry. They might, and this may sound strange, but it's very common. So it's like, imagine if, like, I remember I recently got a manipulator out of my life. He was really harmful. We were just friends, but he would always like lead me on and do a lot of weird stuff. And I just was like, ew, what? Okay. But anyways, he, every time we spent time together, every little thing he did, he was always apologizing. He was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Ara. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. And I was always like, wait, what are you talking about? You didn't hurt me. And he was like, oh no, but you just seemed offended at this or offended at that. And that was another thing, is that projection where they act like you're making them feel guilty. And so that's why they're over apologizing. But it was usually like he just over apologized for everything. And usually he did wrong things later on, but typically he wasn't really doing anything wrong. He was just over apologizing as this form of preemptive defense, so that when he actually started doing bad stuff, I felt guilty for telling him that he was hurting me. And so the whole point of this abuse tactic is to instill guilt inside of the victim, so that when they start abusing that person, they feel guilty for holding that person accountable, because that person is quote unquote always apologizing. They always feel guilty. So the whole thing is they want you to think that they always feel guilty, and their guilt is so like hindering and crippling that they would never want to hurt anybody because of how guilty they feel all the time, and how much their guilt hurts them, and how much they love you. So they want you to kind of have this instilled fear of holding them accountable, because accountability would be letting them know that they're hurting you, and hurting you is the worst thing that could possibly happen, and it hurts them so much. And so it starts to condition you to kind of suppress your feelings. It's kind of like a suppressant, where it teaches you to not speak what's happening, and to kind of see things that are wrong happening but not say anything because you're afraid you're going to hurt your partner. So that's the thing. So it's called fake accountability, or at least that's what I call it. So again, you might go on a walk in the park with your friend or your partner, and you maybe go out to dinner afterwards, and then you both go home, and then later that night you'll get a call like, babe, I'm so sorry. And you're like, wait, what? And they're like crying, and they're like, I would never want to hurt you. And when we were walking earlier, you seemed so offended when I said that I wanted to name my dog Sparky. I love you so much, and I would never want to hurt you. Oh, it's always so stupid, but it'll like be something like that, and you're just like, wait, what? Or they're just always apologizing. They're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel like I was annoying you. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I felt like I was doing this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, if you notice them always apologizing, run. And I know for me, as somebody who has bad anxiety, I'm typically one to over apologize, but it's not when I'm doing something wrong, and it's not for like something stupid. Like, I'm that person who will like nervous apologize, and a lot of people with anxiety do that, but it's not the same thing as like somebody who like everything they do, you notice that they're like apologizing in detail. Like, I might just be like, oh sorry. Like, I'll be walking down the sidewalk and I'll trip, and I'll be like, oh sorry, and it's like, you tripped. Nobody else was involved. Alright, like, this was you. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, what? But that's different. If you just say the word sorry as a nervous habit, that's different than somebody who's being manipulative and abusing the word sorry as a way to make their victim feel guilty about holding them accountable, so that when they start actually being abusive, that person feels like they have ice on their tongue, and that they can't talk, and they can't stand up for themselves or set boundaries without traumatizing their partner to the point where they want to jump off a bridge. And it does get that serious, because a lot of times these people will kind of like threaten suicide, or will pretend like literally their whole, and I'm not exaggerating, their mental health and sanity relies on their ability, quote unquote, not to hurt you. And so it's like this whole thing. It's a game. Literally, it's a game. And so look out for that, because fake accountability is a big one. So for this third red flag, I was going to do love bombing, but I think I'm going to kind of mix it with another red flag. And so I'll go into love bombing in detail maybe for the next video, because this is going to be a multi-part video, probably only 2 or 3 parts. But the third red flag is like, it intersects with love bombing, but it's kind of like this person. One thing you'll notice about them is they always have like a gaggle of people who they're leading on. And let me kind of back that up and explain this a little bit. A lot of emotionally manipulative people, and fuck boys and fuck girls, fuck people, fuck humans, I should say. A lot of these people, typically they have this obsession with people desiring them. They have this obsession with being sought after, being like wanted, somebody craving them or desiring them. It's this whole idea that, you know, they really don't have high self-worth, and so they constantly need people reaffirming the fact that they are attractive, they are desirable, they are this. And so they have this obsession with wanting people to want them, wanting people to seek after them. They want to feel like a hot commodity, like a rare gem. They want to feel wanted. And it doesn't matter. They want that wanting. They want people to long after them so hard that they're willing to romantically and sexually lead on tons of people. I mean, tons of people. Ranging from neighbors to landlords to teachers. Like, you will notice, like, typically these people are big flirts. That's typically every time I've met a person like this, they're always characterized as a flirt. They may not be, but it's like they have this obsession, and these people exist in spectrum. So some people are going to be more flirtatious, and some people are just going to be obsessed with being called a good person and being seen as a good person. I've met somebody like that before too. But in regards to this specific person I am kind of thinking about, and who was the inspiration behind this video, he was very like, everybody had a crush on him. To just be blunt, everybody and their grandma's dog's mom had a crush on this boy. And it wasn't because they're all crazy. I mean, he was a good looking guy, but he wasn't so good looking that it warranted so many people to have the same reaction to him. And what I noticed was, and of course the good looks helped out a lot, but he honestly isn't that great looking. I think it was just a lot of the manipulation that kind of amped up his looks. You know, when an attractive person, or a person who's attractive in our eyes, is very, very nice, or seems very, very nice, they become more attractive. Versus if a attractive person is mean, we're typically like, ew. But you know what I mean? Like, that's shallow, but it's true. It's unfortunately how the world works. But you know, he would always, like, everywhere we'd go, like, I don't spend time with him anymore, we're not friends anymore, but whenever we'd go somewhere, there'd be all these people looking at us, all types of people just looking at us. And a lot of times they would approach us and they'd be like, oh, hi, so-and-so. And they'd say hi to him, and there's always, you know, other women looking at us and glaring at us. And I remember one time I took a picture with him, and there was a girl who I had added on Snapchat, and she DM'd me, and she was like, oh my God, I know him. And I was like, oh, you do? And I didn't know what she meant. She told me some things about him, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, that's a little weird. And I was like, okay. And I should have ran then, but I didn't. But you know, these people have this obsession with people longing after them. So what you'll notice is that they'll like aggressively flirt with all these people, and with the intention of getting these people to like them. But this person does not have feelings for all these people. This person likes feeling all that attention at once. So like I said, honestly, hundreds of people liked this guy. I remember one time I was at a party at his house, and me and him were sitting together, kind of just like, we weren't like cuddling. He had his arm around my shoulder, I had my arm around his shoulder, and we were just kind of sitting down. We were just friends. We were just sitting. And there was this girl, and there were so many girls that would do this. She was and I got to know her later on, and me and her aren't close. I don't really have any issues with her. I just don't really care for her much. She's not my type of person. But like, she looked like her parents took her to go pick out a puppy, and right as she picked out her puppy, they took the puppy back and like euthanized it. Like that's a horrible example, but that's as best as I can explain that face that she made at me. It was like I had taken something from her, and she looked so sad. And I noticed this girl a lot because there were other parties that I had gone to. This is back when I would go, this person would throw a lot of parties, so I would go to a lot of his parties. And I always noticed this girl, and every time any girl came close to him, she would make that face. And anytime I would come close to them, all these girls would be looking at me and looking at him and making all these like the same face where it was like they thought they had a chance with him, and he had led them on and made them believe that, but he was not interested in being anything, having any type of relationship or sexual partnership with any of them. He just wanted them to like him because he liked feeling liked. It made him feel like he had worth. And even when other girls, like there was another girl who she's actually really nice, but he would lead her on too. And it was funny because we all kind of knew it, but we all still played into it because it was like that sunk cost fallacy of like, well, what if he's a really great guy, and what if this, and what if that, and what if, I let another girl have him. And it's so stupid. And women can do this too. Anybody, any type of human, any gender neutral, women identified, man identified, anybody can do this. But this specific situation, there was a lot of, I think, like kind of like there were some weird things outplayed for sure, a lot of like misogyny and weird things that I wish I had picked up on earlier. And a lot of it, I thought I was crazy when I was noticing it. Like when I looked around and I was like, why do all these girls look like they like I'm literally like sitting with their ex? Like, why do they look like that? And then at one point I had to stop myself because I was like, oh my God, I look like one of those girls. Because what he was doing is he had very slowly started to lead me on, and he would aggressively flirt with people to a point where it was almost like you'd be stupid to not think he liked you, to a point where my friends were pulling me aside and telling me that he had feelings for me. And I was like, no, he doesn't. They were like, yeah, he does. And so I started believing them. I started playing into this idea of us dating because we were already so close. And I was like, oh, maybe this might work. Maybe I could see him as a partner. I mean, he's nice. I already know him. We already kind of have this connection. A lot of that awkward phase would be over because we're already friends. Like, maybe I can think about this. And so I started kind of developing feelings for him where I never really had them in the first place. And then all of a sudden I noticed that he was like flirting and doing the same exact routine with all these other girls, to a point where one time I caught him, like the same exact words he had used towards me, he was using towards somebody else in the same exact wording for verbatim. And I was like, oh, this is like a routine he does, where he like kind of sweeps girls up and like sweeps people up. Because actually I take that back, so it wasn't just women, but he kind of sweeps people up into these whirlwinds and makes them feel like he loves them and he thinks they're so special and all these things. He love bombs them, and I'll get into that later on. But then all of a sudden he drops them like a hot tamale. He just drops them, and he literally will act like he's so good at it, acting like he loves you, like he has the biggest crush on you, like he's nervous about it, like he's like this baby bird with a broken wing who has a crush on you and wants to take things to the next level, but he doesn't know how. And he'll like make you think he likes you, like so much to a point where he'll say it sometimes. He'll be like, I just like you so much, and I just don't know even how to say it sometimes. Like he'll admit it. And then when you like are like, oh my God, really, like maybe, and you start having feelings for him, then all of a sudden he drops you. And he'll still be your friend, but he's like acts like he'll gaslight you and be like, I never did that. Or he'll act like he never was flirting with you, even though he was. And he'll act like you're crazy for having feelings for him. I remember before we became friends, I remember he described this one girl as like sexually aggressive and wanting him so much. And in my head, I was like, I don't like you describing another, like a woman like that way. Like, no, like calm down. You're not all that. Like women aren't like clawing after you like tigers. And then I met her and I talked to her for a little bit. And I was like, oh, so he kind of like led you on, because she told me essentially he led me on. And I should have like, I don't know why I didn't run when I heard this. I should have ran, but I don't know. I guess in my brain I was like, well, I'm not romantically interested, so it's fine. But he led her on, and then when she responded, he dropped her because he just wanted her affection. He didn't really want her. And then she started liking him back, and when she told him her feelings, and then he started calling her sexually aggressive because she was honest with him. And she was upfront, unlike him, he's passive aggressive. And so I was like, oh my God. And I felt bad for her, and she's so nice. And I would still talk to her to this day. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she's absolutely amazing. I love her to bits. But yeah, and I should have, when she told me that, it doesn't matter this is the thing. If somebody treats their partner shitty, you don't want to be their friend anyways. Like, if you hear stuff through the grapevine about people, I'm not saying you need to believe everything you hear, but if a lot of people are coming to you and telling you similar things, you need to listen. And for me with this person, I was, this was a couple years ago, and I've been icing this person out kind of slowly, but I should have known, when those women came forward and told me what they told me, I should have listened. And even like, there were so many red flags that I should have listened to. And in my head, I was like, oh, well, he's just a friend. I'm not like really invested in that way. But it doesn't matter. If he's treating other people badly, that should be a red flag. And it wasn't that wasn't a red flag. I think for me personally, I was dealing with a lot in my life and I didn't really have many friends. And I was like, okay, well, he seems nice. My standards for friends were really low. And I was allowing myself to be swept up with a lot of bad people because I didn't really feel like I was worthy enough to have a choice in who I spent time with. And I was lucky to get anybody, which is not true. And it's not true for anybody. So don't ever don't settle for bad people just because you feel like you can't get anybody to spend time with you, because it's not worth it. And you can. And it's better to spend time by yourself than spend time with bad people, even if it hurts. And you will eventually get people who care about you, but they're not easy to stumble across, but you will if you're careful and you protect yourself and you spend more time with yourself and getting to know yourself. And so I'm going to end this video here. It's 25 minutes. I'm still in the process of trying to kind of shave down my videos, but thank you so much for listening and watching. Please comment down below any more red flags. I'm going to do more videos about this. I'm going to post this one, and then shortly after I'll post another one, and maybe another one, but maybe not. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate all of you. All right, signing out.